Hi everyone, my name's Jim Partridge. I am a modder and mapper, and this is an audio commentary to my mod Deeper Down, which I created and released in 2020/2021. And I'll be just talking about some of the design decisions, some of the level design, where it came from, how it evolved, and how it came to be. And yeah, just talking about some of the choices I made, as well as the inspiration for some of the level design areas. So first of all, I'll just give a bit of background. So I was in 2018. I was sitting in a hotel in New Jersey, Jersey City. It was the weekend. I was on a business trip, and I had nothing to do for the whole weekend because there was a hurricane coming in that was going to hit New York, and and I could see New York. It was just across the river. My window of the hotel looked out over New York, and I had nowhere to go because this hurricane was coming in. We were all trapped in our rooms. There was no one in the hotel, and I sat and I was just bored out of my mind. And yeah, and I watched the hurricane sort of come in and hit Manhattan, and I needed something to do. So I was thinking about a potential project. I hadn't done any mapping or modding for a long time, at least a year or so at that point, and just decided to sit down and start writing a potential outline for what a new mod might look like. And I wasn't really sure what to do. I had tried to build a sequel to Deep Down, which was the previous mod, called Rise, Half-Life 2 Rise, which would chart Alex and Gordon's journey from literally the very end of Deep Down, where you kill the advisor. It would begin in that room, and then it would sort of chart the journey back to the surface again. And it seemed like a good idea, and for some reason I just couldn't get it working. I couldn't get it off the ground, and so I was really racking my brain to what to do. So I built several levels for that, and I had quite a lot of interesting gameplay ideas for it. But it just wasn't coming together. For some reason or other, I couldn't piece together what that journey looked like, and what might be involved. It wasn't inspiring me, and I wasn't enthusiastic. So I dropped the project and then didn't touch mapping for about 2 years. So then it occurred to me, I'm sitting in this room and I'm trying to think what to do with the content that I had so far, or how I could make something. And it occurred to me that Deep Down, when I built Deep Down, the original mod, I was fairly inexperienced. I didn't really know what I was doing. A lot of the technical side of the build was very poor, even though a lot of people liked it and didn't really comment too much. I knew that it was bad. And I started to think, well, what if I took these pieces of work I've done and sort of slotted them in to the original Deep Down and created a much longer version of it, like a Redux version of Deep Down, which would basically, I'd go back into the original maps, scrub them up, rebuild some of them maybe in a better way, a less clunky way, and build out and then pad it out with these extra maps that I built for this other project, and thus creating quite a long piece of work. So that seemed like a good idea. And I sat down, and as I say, as I watched this storm coming in, and I remember I had a really bad toothache as well. I was sitting in this hotel, in an empty hotel, sitting with a raging toothache in an empty neighborhood, because it was like a business neighborhood. It was completely empty with this hurricane going on. It's one of the most bizarre experiences, and just sat writing this, and it just started pouring out of me, just all these ideas and all this stuff. And I went back and reviewed that original design document, and what's here now and what's actually delivered at the end result is actually, it's not too far off, but at the same time it's evolved as I started building, and as I started trying to recreate this. I actually scrubbed most of it and ended up building up almost an entirely new project, a new sort of reimagining, if you like, of Deep Down is what it turned out to be. Because I think the narrative piece of it was really strong. You go from White Forest, which sort of implies that you're heading on after episode 2, if you ignore the very final scenes of episode 2, that you're sort of out and you're with Alex and Dog and the car and the Jeep, and and you're heading through the same kind of terrain as episode 2, which is kind of fun, and I think a lot of people tied it like that. And then you sort of, you move your way through a journey, lots of driving, and I wanted to extend the driving. And one thing that was bugging me about Deep Down was that the driving was underground quite a lot. It was, and I wanted to do overground driving. I really wanted to sort of build out a world, or at least create the feeling of a long journey through a world to reach the destination. But then, you get into the mines, which I always really enjoyed that part of Deep Down, the sort of the descent into the mines, and then finally into a combine sort of citadel-y type space underground, where you would then battle a foe of some kind. So I think one of the things I hit upon actually in that hotel room was the fact that the bad guy could be, and I will say right now, this is a spoiler if you haven't played it. So if you do want to play it, please don't listen any further and you don't want any spoilers. But I'm going to carry on. I'll give you a chance to stop. And now I'll carry on, which is basically having Overwatch as the bad guy. This sort of computer that you've heard all the way through, this sentient AI who's been there since the Half-Life 2 point in episode 1, as being the one bad guy, if you like, that we never took care of. And I thought that was an easy win because you've got all these audio files, so you can play the audio for her, and you just need to build something that looks like a supercomputer, to represent that at the end. So it seemed like quite a good idea. So we'll talk about the title screen. At the moment in this version, one of these crows hits a pole every now and again as it flies towards the camera. You may have noticed on this point. So I do actually need to fix that before I release this on Steam. But for the most part, I really just like this vista. This was one of the most interesting spaces I created, I think, through the mod. And I thought it, obviously, with the fantastic sunset and the mountains, plus all the complexity of the geometry in front of the piece here, I thought it was pretty good. And this was quite static until I started preparing this for a Steam release, and then I added the crows quite recently, and I've only just noticed the crow flying towards the camera now, as you can see, every now and again hits that pole and bonks his way off, and then goes on. I quite like it. I've got a weird affinity for slightly weird little mishaps like that. I think they're funny, but I don't know. I've got other friends who are very serious about mapping and tell me off for things like that. So that's it for now. I will continue on in a minute, and we'll move into the first map, and I'll talk about that.